we talk about Diceless RPGs. All right, let's talk about some RPGs.
Yes, it's going to be really fun to talk about so many RPGs.
And we got our trusty dice here, always ready to go.
Dice?
Yeah, dice. I mean, every RPG has dice.
Get that out of here. We're not talking about that, Charles.
What?
NANI?
Welcome to What is Tabletop, where we're talking about Diceless RPGs. My name's Frank, and yes, I did just throw that die. And yes, it did hurt a little bit. My constitution's not very high. With me is Charles.
I'm upset.
His wisdom is low. I don't know what was the equivalent of being upset. What would that low stat be? Okay, and so we're talking about Diceless RPGs today on What is Tabletop.
So, because apparently there's a bunch of them out there.
Yes, but first, like, comment, subscribe, tell the YouTube things. More people want to watch this, so please show them it.
Join our Discord and tell us all about your experience with Diceless TTRPGs.
There's so many of them. The more we look into this stuff, the more I'm surprised at how many things there are.
And Thomas Webster, thank you for supporting us on Patreon.
We appreciate your money, even though it's pounds and not American dollars, but I think it translates, so we'll be fine. What are we actually talking about today, Charles?
Well, for honk.
Doesn't work, does it?
Today we're talking about Diceless.
I mean, you're not wrong. We are talking about RPGs that don't use a single die or multiple dice.
We are talking about Diceless role-playing games.
And there are many of them to talk about, from using cards to using nothing at all.
Yay!
What is that? What do you...
I don't know.
So, we're going to talk about it. What is the first thing we're going to talk about, Charles?
Diceless RPGs. But why?
Because people like to be contrarian.
That's fair.
I think that's really the big thing. I mean, like, I do think there are some instances where having other resolution systems outside of dice can be very, very strong and very good and thematically resonant, but I think it's also because people want to be different and unique.
That's the thing, though. It's basically just improv and talking with your friends.
Oh, we'll get to that in the pros and cons section, Charles. Don't you worry about that. We will talk about it. But let's talk about some examples, and then we can get to the pros, the cons, why you want to do it, if you want to do it, what you can do, all the fun stuff that comes with that ninja moves.
What are the categories of Diceless TTRPGs?
I have found that there's basically two categories of Diceless RPGs. There is we're using a randomizer, but it's not dice. Mm-hmm. And then there's we don't use any randomizer whatsoever. So let's talk about the first one. And this one, we're just going to kind of give examples of other randomizers you can use, some games that use them. I'm going to name names of games I've never heard about until we did research for this. So at me in the comments, I guess, if I get one wrong and you're like, actually, Frank, it's not playing cards, it's tarot cards.
So the first thing we're going to be talking about are the deck of cards. Of cards.
Yeah, deck of cards used in a lot of different ways. I think Good Society uses a deck of cards. It's literally like it resolves that way. There's games like Beat to Quarters, I think is what it's called. I don't know. Tell me I'm wrong.
We're so prepared.
Even to some extent, Deadlands uses cards in some of its resolution. Not all of it. Obviously, it still uses dice. But in its initiative, it will use a deck of cards.
There's also coin flips.
Yep, coin flips, flipping coins. That's a 50-50 probability there. Don't know how often that happens, though I'm sure you could do something like you have to flip a result X amount of times to make something more difficult. But a game known as Clink, which makes sense, like Clink,
like you're in prison, got it?
Yeah, in metal. We also have the Block Tower in Dread. Charles knows that one.
I love that one. That one's fun.
Yes, it makes sense. The thematic resonance of the tension that is building from the in-game to the out-of-game pulling of the Jenga Tower. Sorry, not Jenga Tower. That's copyright. Block Tower. Tower. It's very fun, very, very thematically resonant. No arguments there. I found an interesting one, and this is the most interesting one I found, is Dominoes.
Ooh, that would be a fun thing to use.
I'm assuming you're just playing a game of dominoes, and like if you're able to connect, then you're able to. Again, I don't know. I'm sorry.
I think a cool way to do a resolution with that would you have dominoes upside down, and then when you have to make a major decision, like in Dread,
it might be that
you pull it out, and then like if you don't have either like the total or whatever, and then maybe even have wilds.
That'd be interesting, but
I like that.
I would have to know the distribution of dominoes to know. I mean, I'm sure you could do the math on that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what I found is there's two kinds of things that there are. There's basically other form of randomizers, coin flips, playing cards, even dominoes if you do it the way Charles is talking about. That's one method. The other method of non-conventional, like non-dice, non-conventional randomizer is a more like skill-based thing, right? The block tower. Are you able to place things on top? I put marbles, like play a game of marbles. Like you could just play a game of like rock, paper, scissors. to determine if you're successful or not.
We talked about this in our Discord before. I was wondering about other games that incorporated like older, like basic games, like because we have Jenga for Dread. What about 90s? There were Pogs. And then when we were at Gen Con, we saw the one game that incorporated Pogs into their game. I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think it is literally just Pogs again.
I think it is. I don't think it's really a role-playing game.
I don't think it is. But you could arguably have it be Pogs.
Yeah.
Right? Why not?
So let's talk about ones that don't use randomizers.
Yes, that's right. This is the other category. So there's the ones that use randomizers that aren't dice. And then this is the no randomizer whatsoever, which on the surface might seem like you're just playing pretend, but a lot of these games actually have some meat to them that allow it to be more than just playing games.
So there's some type of mechanic that goes along with it. It may not be with a resolution system like dice, but there's a way to resolve things.
Yes, there is a resolution of some kind.
Okay.
It's just not random per se.
So it's more like almost like joint storytelling.
Yeah, and so the first one we're going to talk about is a brand new game to us and also on Kickstarter currently, Enclave.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Enclave and its new upcoming book.
If you haven't heard, Enclave is a Diceless RPG system that allows you to play as 6 unique classes.
We recently played the game with its developer, and we got to have fun with it, creating these unique characters. They were both reincarnated Greek gods.
But you can do literally whatever you want. That's the kind of appeal of this kind of game. And the classes range from like Gunslinger, a Wayfinder, to like, what were you, a Thunderbird?
Caca.
And if you think those are interesting classes, make sure you check out its expansion book that's coming to the Kickstarter right now.
It featured new classes, progression, and ways to play.
And so this just adds a bunch of new stuff to it.
You should go check them out now.
Go back them now. And back to the video. So we were fortunate enough to get to play Enclave with the creator, Robbie himself. It was really fun, a fun session. We were 2 reincarnated Greek gods. Where you were Zeus, I was Hermes, but I was in the body of an old man and you were in a teenager.
I was an awkward teenager. It was great.
It was really interesting just to see how it worked. Because ultimately, from what I found, it was, can you creatively think of a solution to get you out with the abilities or gadgets or whatever you have? Can you use that to then basically convince the GM that, yeah, you know what you do will actually work?
It was also interesting how you can build off of those moments with your abilities and just how you can continue moving on through a scene without having to use dice.
Yeah, we were able to find a moment to use every single one of our abilities, our items, stuff like that, which made it fun for us to be able to be that creative.
Absolutely.
It's nice to see a system that is able to allow for that kind of flexibility. Another thing that it does as well is you do have modifiers, but that's more to determine how good you are at something overall. So like a +1 means you're better than the average person. A +2 means you're really, really good at it. And +3 is you're ungodly good at it.
Ungodly or godly good at it.
Well, we were gods, so yeah. I mean, it makes sense to say ungodly, you know what I'm saying?
Fair.
So like I was incredibly lucky. It was great.
Incredibly. I like that.
It was so good. The amount of times that things just happened to go my way was great. I loved it.
I like how you use incredibly, not incredibly.
Charles, we're already off the rails with this game.
Woo! Well, hey, there are no rails because there's no dice.
No, there's still rails, Charles.
One of my favorite things about Enclave is creating characters that are so different and unique, and you can pull from almost anything. And I like that. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was very system neutral in a good way, which was nice. What I thought was surprising was when Robbie said how many people never played an RPG before, period, and then this got them into it, which I guess is very like the equivalent of throwing someone into the deep end to learn how to swim.
Yeah. Having dice helps us determine what the outcome is going to be. We don't get to say what happens, but in a dice system, there's a lot kind of up in the air, so there's the uncertainty of like what's going to happen next, which kind of makes it a little more fun, I think.
Yeah, and again, we'll get into the pros and cons at the end of the video of like what's good about it, what's not, because I think it is a preference thing for sure. So we'll talk about that then. But we have another game to talk about in the Diceless. This is one that came up a lot that seemed to be like a pioneer of dice.
Amber Diceless RPG.
Yeah, so from what I could tell, it was based off of a book series, sounds familiar, where someone made an RPG to go off of it. And then they made a bunch of rules about playing in that. And a lot of the rules are lore-based stuff. A -10 is what's good for normal people, but a 0 is what's average for people in the Amber universe world thing. That kind of stuff, I'm not gonna lie, it's very complicated when you don't know the lore.
But when it comes to Diceless RPGs, you kind of need to know what where you're coming from, because without having a resolution mechanic, so to speak, you kind of need to know at least what world you're playing in.
I will say, so the system that's in place is interesting, and I think you can kind of strip it for parts and make it work. So the idea is that every ability you have, every attribute you have is comparable, meaning you don't roll dice, obviously. If I take my wisdom against, let's say, your wisdom, who has the higher wisdom, that person is most likely to win. Now, and the disparity between the stats is really what's important. So let's say you have a 10 wisdom and I have a 64 wisdom. I'm going to win that.
Unbelievable.
But like handedly, versus if you had a 60 wisdom and I had a 64 wisdom, then it's going to be a little bit, okay, Charles could win if he has the right circumstances. Does he have some additional things to give him advantage?
I see.
Right? It's very similar to Enclave, where it's like, can you convince, based off of the circumstances you're in, that you actually have the advantage, even though numbers-wise you don't?
Got it. So it's kind of like, okay, here are your stats, and then what can help you achieve that success that's in your bag or that you have on you or your circumstance to help you achieve those goals.
Yeah, one of the things I really like in RPGs is when characters can use combat abilities outside of combat, and that feels like what Diceless Systems kind of do.
Yeah.
Is they're like, can you justify with your toolkit what tool to be able to use right now? And if you can, then there's a higher chance of you succeeding. So let me go into like the minutia of this a little bit, because I do want to give it its due. It seems like it's one of the oldest Diceless systems. So you can have stats ranging from -25 to 0 to anywhere above that. Like the number can be as high as possible.
Wow.
What's interesting is when you make characters, you do an auction. You bid for spots in that. And so let's say we're bidding for wisdom, and we all have 100 points. You might say, I'm going to put 10 points in wisdom. It's like, cool. I'm doing 64.
Okay.
We keep bidding until someone has the highest amount. No one at that point can go above that amount. You are considered the best in that, period.
So that means you compete against other players for that skill?
Yeah, you compete against the other players. So it's not point buy in the sense that, I'm going to put 64 points in, and I happen to have that. No. You do an auction where you're literally using your points and saying, I want to put 64 into that. And you are now saying that is the capstone. No one can be higher than 64, and I am the best at it.
What if someone says, well, I want to put 65 in it?
You can't, because at the auction it is determined that is the limit.
Oh, okay. So prior to bidding, there is a...
No. The bidding of the auction is what determines the cap.
Okay.
So if we're bidding, I say 64 and the auction ends, that is the highest.
Well, that's something. I guess is what I'm getting at. Like during this auction process, you use 64, so it's 65. You just keep going back until whoever gets the highest?
You only have so many points. It's an auction, so you have 100 points. So sure, you can put 64, 65 into one skill. You then have whatever the leftover is for the rest.
Got it. Okay. That sounds amazing and dangerous, and I love it.
Yeah, it does sound very interesting in that regard. And I can see how that also helps break ties if it's like, I'm 64 and then you eventually get up to 64, but I was always the best at this thing. Like that's how it kind of breaks it.
Oh, I see. So you would be the cap. So if you were 64, but I could somehow get to 64 in the game through whatever methods. My question is, how many skills or stats are you applying these to?
I think there's 4 attributes, and I didn't look if there were other skills or anything like that. I'm assuming there has to be some additional, but it might just be very similar to Fabula Ultima, where it's just like the 4 stats and you justify it.
And if you go into negatives, does that give you more?
No. Negatives are bad.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Negatives are bad.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Say you went to a negative skill.
Charles, I don't know.
So, hey, let us know in the comments about Amber Diceless TTRPG if you know anything
Yes,
about
help with engagement. Yeah, so it seems interesting, where it's, again, numbers, and you can have such a wide variety that it becomes obvious, right? If I'm going to go against a professional mixed martial arts fighter, I'm going to lose. No, there's the whole 100 men versus gorilla thing. All men think they can fight a gorilla. You're not going to win that.
If you're a man who thinks you can beat a gorilla, Lord be with you or whatever.
Mike Tyson could probably beat it, but not now Mike Tyson. Prime Mike Tyson.
Prime Mike Tyson.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Gorillas are...
He'd bite the ear. He'd bite the ear off the gorilla, show dominance.
If the gorilla didn't bite his face off first.
No, gorilla slap faces off, my guy. Come on.
Sorry.
Come on.
Rest in peace, Harambe.
Oh my, that's an old... Anyway, we have another one to talk about, Charles, and what's that?
All right, let me look at the thing.
Yes. I got to get his reaction to seeing this one. What's it called, Charles?
The next Diceless game we're going to talk about is Puppetland.
Ah, yes. Yes. Happy Halloween, Charles.
So tell me about Puppetland, Frank.
Charles doesn't like puppets. So, okay, let me give you the lore of Puppetland.
Okay.
And I'm going to do my best to recall it because it's very fascinating. In Puppetland, it's a bunch of puppets. They're just going about doing their puppet things. It's probably like Sesame Street.
It's like marionette puppets?
No, like little...
Oh, okay, those puppets are fine.
Some of them are wooden. Some of them are wooden.
Oh, so some of them are marionettes.
Well, the one that killed the maker of all puppets and then ripped his face off to then put it on his own face to become the tyrannical ruler of Puppetland, he's a wooden puppet. And then he used the flesh of the maker to make his subordinates.
Now you know why I don't like puppets. That's dark as anything. Good Lord.
Yeah, Puppetland is dark, despite the name Puppetland.
Okay, let's talk about it a little bit more, I guess.
Here's the interesting part of Puppetland. So in Puppetland, you are always talking in character. You are never not talking in character.
Oh.
So like you right now, if you were to say like, I'm going to go to the bathroom, your puppet is now going to the bathroom. Like that is what's happening.
So it's like method acting.
Yeah, you're literally just like, whatever you said goes. And if you want to have your puppet go and do something, you must talk in third person. So you have to say like, McGillicuddy is going to go to the store now. McGillicuddy walks to the store. He makes his way to the store. McGillicuddy pays for his food, not looking at the puppet overlord, remembering all the sorrowfulness that comes from that.
Are you utilizing puppets during gameplay too?
I think ideally, yes. This is a therapy session for Charles, apparently.
Oh, this is the anti-therapy going to need therapy after this.
The good news is it only lasts an hour. Like, the game is supposed to only last an hour. That's what it's meant to be for.
Oh, it's like a haunted house. Perfect.
It's short, and it gets it over with, Charles. Do you want to move on from talking about puppets, Charles?
No, I have so many questions.
Those are the only answers I have. So
let's move on, shall we? Please. We are.
All right, we're going to talk about the pros, the cons, the other things, and remind us puppets don't exist. We're here.
Puppets aren't real.
Puppets can't hurt you, Charles.
They're like birds.
Pros. I think this gets a lot of people out of their comfort zone, which is good. I can understand the appeal of being like, oh, no, I want to be able to convince or use my tool bag and be very creative. It forces people to be very creative.
And that's what I was going to say. I think if you're a creative person in general, and especially if you're the kind of person who can think like off the cuff, these are the kind of systems you're going to be interested in playing.
I think another nice thing is the dice can never screw you up.
That's true, because how many times have you played a tabletop game where it's like, oh, I have a really good skill in this, and that nat one or that failure, that critical failure is like, how could this have happened? Like then you kind of have to role play like how this happens.
Right.
Like even though you're always like you're supposed to be perfect at it or at least really good at it, and for you to fail, yeah, it takes that kind of guesswork out of it. It's like I'm going to succeed because I've set it up where I could succeed.
Yeah, and in the case of randomizers that aren't dice, the thematics of it can fit really well. Mm-hmm. Again, the playing cards in Deadlands is really cool as initiative. The block tower in Dread is awesome. Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff can be really fun and really immersive building if you're able to use it properly.
Yeah, and then there's things like Tin Candles as well.
Tin Candles still uses dice. No, it heavily uses dice. That is its resolution mechanic. Though Fiasco uses dice, but not in the way you think.
Yeah, because it's just a set. Basically, you just roll, and then it basically helps you set up the scene. You choose what you use those dice as.
Oh yeah, the dice are more for like resolving it, and it's not the roll of the dice that matters. It's the color of the dice.
Yeah.
So that in that regard,
that's fair.
It's not technically the same.
So,
but it is a little bit. So. Ultimately, I think those are the pros. There's a lot of good to be had with that. So the cons.
Because I think there's not a resolution system, it makes it more difficult. Then you're kind of at the whim of potentially the GM.
It's a lot more GM control. If your GM is not willing to, allow certain things to happen, and because that's the beauty of the dice, is when the GM's like, that is dumb. There's no way that's going to work. Roll, and then the dice have the 1 in 5 chance of it happening, and you're like, well, that's what happened. The dice determined so.
Yeah, it's kind of a pro and a con, because in some situations your players might do something just so ridiculously it's like, come on, like please don't do this.
But even in dice games, you can say no to those stuff. Like if you're saying I want to fly, and it's like, well, you can't fly. You have no abilities that allow you to fly. You just say no.
Yeah, I think that's something important to remember too for GMs, is that it's okay to tell your players no.
Now, I will say when we played Enclave, I remember him specifically saying, if you were not as new players as you were, if you were more veteran players, I would not have been as nice with certain things. And so you don't get the cool moments of like, I don't know, hypothetically, we're driving a street race car going after a sentient car. I pull out a grappling hook it around a thing so we can turn fast enough. And because I have a strong enough strength and luck and the grappling hook, we were able to make it work. He would have said, nah, which is like, I'm like, that's cool. Like, I like those kind of moments. I'm going to be honest, like, because I am being creative. I'm doing some wacky stuff, but like that's where the dice can be fun, where it's like, you know what? You're doing some wacky stuff. Let's see if it works or not.
I think the biggest con is the lack of control from the player side.
Yeah, it does feel like it can come down to, are you able to convince somebody? Mm-hmm. And so now it's a completely different thing. It's not a role-playing game in the sense of like you're playing a character and they get to do things, right? If you are not comfortable in like being a little combative when it comes to talking to people in the sense of like, no, I think it makes sense that this should work, or even like thinking outside the box, which I know a lot of people are like, no, that's what the point of RPGs. Some people are not that good at thinking outside the box, and that's okay.
Say you're trying to do something very charismatic, and you don't have the words for it, but you put all the points and stuff you could into your charisma, so you should be able to do that. You shouldn't have to be charismatic yourself, because I want to play a charismatic character because I'm not naturally charismatic type thing. You should be allowed to do that. However, these kind of systems, it almost feels it could potentially lead to power struggles.
Yeah. I could see a situation where the GM's like, no, what are you saying to convince the guy? And it's like, no, but I have a high charisma. I just convince him. And then again, now you're getting into the back and forth where the game is now more about convincing each other than actually playing the game, where a die roll is a good mediator for that.
Yeah. And then you just create Survivor, the tabletop role-playing game, and then just vote everything.
Now, I will say another big thing, and people might argue with me in the comments about this. There is something to rolling dice, rolling the clickety-clacks, that gets the people going.
It's true.
I genuinely believe you don't have as many big pops, right? Like those moments of like, oh my gosh, it happened. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the tension building that comes with rolling a die, other randomizers could work, right? Pulling a card like, oh, am I going to be able to do it? Pulling from the tower. Mm-hmm. It can have that tension building because you're waiting to see the result of something. Yeah. But if you just are doing a normally collaborative, like diceless system, you're not necessarily going to have that same moment. It's not very obvious of like, this is the moment when the applause hits. Right. It's like, I want to do the thing. You do the thing. Cool.
Right. Yeah. It's a little underwhelming or can be underwhelming. It really, I think it also depends on the GM you have, because they can make you feel like you did something really cool, even though you didn't roll dice at all. I think Robbie did a really good job of that when we were playing, because it felt like we were accomplishing things. We're like, yeah, that was a lot of fun. I think it really determines how invested the GM is in it as well.
Right. I think it goes back to kind of our meta currency playing point a little bit.
Yes.
Right. People don't like meta currency because they don't like that the GM spends a resource for a thing to happen. I think it can be very valuable from a gameplay perspective to be like, look, the GM is not being unfair to you. I am spending a resource so that this obstacle gets in your way.
Yeah.
And it's the same with a dice mechanic where it's like, oh, in order for this thing to happen, you have to roll a certain amount. Knowing that up front is really nice. Even not knowing the number, like just knowing that there's a possibility of it, right? Knowing the expectations of it can be beneficial. Not saying that you can't have those same things with diceless systems, right? Robbie's talked about how much in Enclave people really enjoy his system. We even had one of his people reach out to us before he did about the game.
There is something to be said for just having players and GMs invested into a game. Because again, you can make a game a lot of fun if everyone's as long as you buy into it. I think there's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, I will say, if you've never played a diceless game before, I actually would recommend trying it. You will be surprised how creative it can make you become. I think that's a good thing. If you're a designer, thinking about incorporating non-dice mechanics is interesting. Again, we have people in our Discord who are talking about using non-dice resolutions, and I'm curious to see how that works. There's a game called Gloomhaven, and it's literally just D&D in a box for a board game, and everything's set up. What's different is you don't have a die that you roll, you have a deck of cards, and you shuffle it, and it's got a 1 through a 20 in it. Now, what's interesting is with a deck of cards, you can do some really unique stuff, like thinning out the deck, adding in extra 20s, right? You don't get to do that with a die. I mean, you probably could try to find a way to do custom dice and stuff like that. Doesn't work the same way. But you see what I'm saying is there's so much untapped potential in diceless systems that I'm sure people could find ways to make them interesting and innovative. I think they might work well as supplementary material, but that's a personal preference.
Yeah, I think you can come up with a diceless system using other things like the cards and dominoes. There are things that I know we have not mentioned. Let us know in the comments of different things you think would be good in place of dice. Basically.
Yeah, like Squid Game, the RPG is marbles.
That's amazing.
That would that could be interesting where it's like you have a bag of marbles, and much like in the game, how you resolve is actually up to you. So like this game is an all or nothing game for the marbles, or the next game is multiple rounds. That could be interesting.
Then you just call it Lost Your Marbles. Welcome.
You get that one for free, audience.
No charge.
Is that it? Stay witty? I think so, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Why do we have these dice trades? We weren't even doing dice. This was all pointless. We got to re-record. Stay witty.
No, we're not re-recording.